because the most important thing I've been doing for me was the one-on-one type of reflection when I was completely present with one being online or in person, and it was so native to me. And now it's like, okay, let's see how we can dance three of us together, knowing that three of you with Sam have been extremely well harmonized during the event that I've attended here in Lisbon. So okay, let's make it work. Regarding headless brands, because this is something you've mentioned, Laura, and I'd like to come back to that. What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
The concept of headless brand. Yeah. So basically, the idea or like the backstory, perhaps, of headless brand, which is also the origin story of how we met, is that we were invited at one of the early unconferences, early blockchain conferences in Berlin, and in this very loose, unstructured setting, we decided, kind of like half jokingly, but I think I kind of like also very seriously, to propose a session discussing brands as consensus mechanisms. So looking at how brands themselves, like the aesthetic field in a sense, more than the specific like meanings or whatnot, it also serves this function of consensus mechanism, or like is what brings people together in a lot of ways. And then looking at, we kind of extended or like that logic to starting to think about things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which back then was really new, as these brands that are literally decentralized, or like there is no marketing like office behind the perception that people make of these new technologies and infrastructures that have a very specific brands, I guess. So I guess that was that's perhaps a way of saying it. Maybe like Toby has. Okay.
Well, is other internet a headless brand?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. I hear you. Okay, I received that answer without questions, I guess. Then your mutual interest on headless brands and I guess decentralized technology. How did that kind of develop in establishing other internet? Maybe Toby, for you.
Well, other internet, each individual really brought their own interest to it, and I guess context worth having is like other internet, for like the biggest part of its lifespan, was also like a Keybase group chat,
Right.
with a lot of different channels and topics where people talked about different things. I know I've always brought a kind of anthropological lens. I'm like a kind of a moral genealogy lens to things. Sam, who is like a very technical blockchain like systems architect and research scientist, always, but also was like a genomics researcher before this, like kind of brings an almost like geometric style of thinking, a very like structural and like mechanistic style of thinking. Laura has always had like a interest in like the kind of libidinal economic dynamics of things, and that's just the three of us. There's like a much broader, and those three, we've also like changed each other over time, like working together. There's the three of us, but there's a much broader group of people too. Kia Kreutler thinks a lot about like memory. Aaron Z. Lewis was one of the first people in our group to think about the like the IRL digital synthesis, and like how those things like ought to work together in a way that doesn't take attention out of the real world space and like onto screens, and like contributed research around like neighborhood associations. And Brian, another researcher who was full-time at Other Internet, like has more of a social impact background, so he knew a lot about philanthropy and like could really assess the like the nascent philanthropic tendencies of crypto. everyone had a lot to contribute into like a big soup, and even people who weren't full-time on other internet, like Edward Arcadis, who worked at Urbit, like spiritually similar to the crypto project, but like very different in many ways. A profound thinker about computers, like had a lot to share and contribute. And I'm not mentioning even half of the people who are associated. Shout out to them as well.
Understand. What makes internet other? How did you come up with the name, Laura?
Toby. I came up with the name with Darren Kong, the original co-founder of Other Internet, when we were on a trip in Japan together, walking around Shibuya. But at that time, that was 2018, and at that time, many of our friends who later became part of the internet or adjacent to it, such as like Khalil Kapuozo and Austin Wade Smith, and many of our friends in New York were experimenting with like decentralized web technologies. We had not all gotten into crypto yet. So things like DApp Protocol and Beaker Browser, going to DWeb Summit, there was a strong desire among our group of people to like return to some kind of like softer, more gentle, more like idiosyncratic internet of like GeoCities and personal websites and these things, and a hope that decentralized web technologies would enable that. But of course, like we also knew the internet was this like vastly profound media environment that is changing like every aspect of how we live. So the desire for like a different internet, an alternative internet or another internet is like a also desire for a different kind of way of life. And when we said the name, we were like, that's beautiful. That's it. Nice.
So it was a consensus on that name. You didn't have any other options for the group, correct?
We had a few. I wonder what they were.
Yeah, I'm also curious. How does this naming emerge? Laura, what was your first feeling when you heard that proposal?
I mean, Other Internet already existed as this entity when I met Toby and Sam, when we all met. So the name was kind of already existing.
It's
but
on the radar.
It's also such a good name. It's we played a lot with the different versions or variations of the name. Some say other internets, like the other internet or many other internets. So there's a bit of ambiguity there. Like, but I mean, I think it's a great. It points to something that I think is still, I don't know, a very important. I don't know, like, maybe aspiration for a lot of people, like creating, realizing, or living within another internet of some kind.
Well, another thing I feel with this group, with us, I think we're coming from the same background of having maybe no or very little internet when we were in high school. I'm assuming. And generally, like I'm coming from a place where.
Speaking for myself.
Tell me.
I had a fair amount of internet.
Fair. When I was in high school, no, you're good. Okay, so what I mean is that the internet was more I don't know, like I'm not like a new place, out there. It was not a commercially kind of like backed type of place where you see ads and you see like all the content made to promote a certain product. It was a place where we would go and we would study something, we will learn about each other. Maybe we would like go into rabbit holes of different, I don't know, like thought leadership. And I feel that other internet does exist now, or what I call new internet. Also, I've been looking at the name new a lot in the past 5 years. But what does it mean is that I'm still finding that like locality within the internet, like those maybe even dark forest of the internet, where I feel very safe. I feel where have the right access to the right people to be able to be fully myself, as opposed to be a target for ads, most of the time. But then again, I'm feeling that your idea behind other internet also has to do with, again, that headless brands, ecosystem networks. Everything has to do with the blockchain technology and how this is kind of like spearheading a way for new type of organizations and new type of coordination systems between people. So I mean, again, what you're tapping into is a huge topic. It's almost like a new country, you know. You're looking at something that is so broad, and you're able to create a thought leadership and cultural leadership within that space. What was your current, like, okay, in the beginning, what was your very initial vision of what you were building versus what it had become? Um, how was it the same and how is it different? What surprised you, perhaps, of how it turned out? Laura.
Okay. So, I mean, I can speak from my perspective because maybe Toby had certain, I don't know, ambition or desires from the very original, early discussion like with Darren.
When you
I don't
joined, you know,
but
what you were feeling like you're joining versus what it had become.
I mean, Other Internet, I think, has pretty much always been like a research organization. It started when I joined as an applied, something that would describe itself as an applied research organization, working, also for clients. Like obviously, we were writing essays, the three of us, but also we started pretty quickly we started doing like client work, like working with some protocols, or like in order to try to bring into practice the type of thinking that we were describing or like writing about in our essays. I guess the bigger kind of practical change that happened since those days is that Other Internet has become a non-profit in the last couple of years. So the research focus is still very present. Now there is more of a non-profit angle. So ideally, like we would like to, or like the organization still exists to, advance perhaps like research and like knowledge within the digital realm, but also maybe less emphasis on Web3 per se. I guess there was something that none of us really sat down and were like, okay, now we're only going to work on Web3. It kind of just happened. So, so I guess at the moment, I think the tagline is more about this research institute, which studies the social, psychological, and political effects of digitalization at large.
Got it. Yeah. And Toby, what was your initial expectation versus how it turned out to be?
My original hope was to create this kind of research organization, and it achieved that, even down to like having a full-time staff at some point, like employing 5 people. That was kind of what I set out to do. Nice. In terms of how it was different than my expectations, though, that the full-time era was like much more challenging and like ineffective than I expected, and frictionful, to say the least. And I think the biggest surprise from all of that was when we realized it just wasn't working and decided to retire it, and like went back to being just a loose collection of people. Of course, we now had this legal vehicle, this nonprofit vehicle too, like support us and make our endeavors easier, and having a bank account is easier than having a multi-sig still. But it is and now Other Internet has kind of reduced in numbers to like me, Sam, and Laura. Like again, we're kind of like the core who are still going. There are still people other internet friends like rep other internet. Like the other internet mafia is very strong. But Sam and Laura and I are the ones who are currently like carrying out the formal mission of the nonprofit in the most concrete way.
Yeah. Okay. Let me get the book just so that I show everyone have this physical collectible. I got it as well read. I didn't get it through the meta label, but I like to buy physical. Haven't read much of it. Read a couple of chapters non-linearly. I've read most of your publications. Look, you've been what I've been calling Web3 media. Still, Web3 was a big part. Web3 media, because I feel like you understood how all these ecosystem players are basically media on their own. You have the channels, the social channels, you have the chats. The chats is something that is quite new to the internet in general. Like you have the organization, you have its chat, right? Community chat. You have all these community calls, you have even, in a DAO scenario, you have all these different directions of collaboration with the discords. And I feel like you've been a place for people to go to get the heartbeat, the cultural heartbeat of the whole Web3 decentralized space. Even though maybe not every single ecosystem were very, let's say, aware of your work, I feel the cultural leaders that I've been in touch with were basically part of your crew, what made you so special? What do you think, in your point of view, that made you who you are? How did you achieve what you see as success, or what I see as success, by getting the grant? Like what worked? Toby.